Hello and welcome back. Today's episode is a tad bit different. We invited our friend Jody from the Youth Association to help us talk about positive masculinity and a bit about mental health. So sit back and relax, and we hope you learn something new.
Right, okay, so that was the signal. Christian, since this was your idea, why don't you do the honours and do the introductions?
Well, good morning, good afternoon and good evening everybody, especially Stephen's brother who listens to it mainly. Today we've got a very special guest, my friend Jody.
Hello, so my name's Jody. I'm a detached youth worker for the Youth Association. I've been a detached youth worker for 11 years now, walking around the streets of Leeds, around Bradford, around Doncaster, around Barnsley, talking and engaging with the young people out on the streets. That can be gangs, that can be talking about knife crime, drugs, antisocial behaviour, engaging in sports. That can be just talking about mental health, talking about positive things to do within the area.
Okay, so what's when you mentioned you talk to these youths and that, so the main topic, what's the main topic that you talk about?
Right, so when we get funding to go into these areas, it can be for absolutely everything. It could be antisocial behaviour, so I'm working out in Leeds at the minute, so the main thing that we're doing out in Leeds at the minute is all about high vulnerable stuff inside that area, so that is knife crime, gang culture, county lines, drugs and alcohol, substance misuse, and these young people have been doing this through the forms of like music, drill music. So that's one of the ways that we've got in with them. We talk to the young people, find out their hobbies, what their interests are, what they like to do, and then we put them activities on for them out in the streets. Rather than going to a youth service or like a building based thing, then we go out onto the street itself, into the parks, into the dark areas, and get these young people to engage in any way possible. So that could be through sports, but with this one, it's through drill music.
So I've got to ask, like the way you do that, doing it in the parks or whatever, instead of doing it in a building, that's to put them in an environment that they're more familiar with, so they're not feeling pressured. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, it's a complete safe space for them that they're in. So normally you have a youth club that's inside the area, it's access for any young people that's within the area, but there's certain people that won't go to that youth club, certain people that won't go to the sports centres and so on. So we go out as a detached youth work, going into them areas where the young people are accessing any services.
Well, I do think that's quite an interesting point that you made, because when it comes to youth centres, from my own personal experience, when it comes to going to youth centres, it's designed to be, everyone's welcome. But, and again, this is just my personal opinion, I sometimes feel that an environment like that can be intimidating, no, you have to behave this way. And it's
Definitely.
yeah, so don't get me wrong, manners are important, but when I'm in an environment like that and I feel I get this subconscious feeling there's expectations to meet, and if you don't meet those expectations, there are eyes on you, and if there are eyes on you, anxiety goes off, and some people might be quick to frustration. Doing the way you do it, then obviously that's putting them more at ease, isn't it?
Yeah, it's letting them be able to access every single type of area. So if you go into a youth centre or anything like any type of building-based youth provision, there is ground rules there. You've got to do set things for safety for the young people, for safety for the staff and so on. And it's different insurance and stuff that they have to do. But with us as detached youth workers, we're going into the safe space where them young people are hanging about. So that could be inside a park or outside a bus stop, outside a shop or inside a bus depot or anything like that, and we can go up to them, and if they feel like they don't want to talk to us, they can remove themselves, and vice versa with us. If we don't feel safe or anything, then we can remove ourselves. With a building base, you've got set rules within there that they've got to follow. When you're out on the street, they have got set rules that everybody else has to abide by, but us as detached youth workers can remove ourselves from that.
Right, so essentially what you're saying is there are still rules in place, but it's more flexible just to make the individual feel more comfortable.
Yeah, for example, if you're inside a building and a young person smokes, then they can be smoking, they won't be able to smoke inside that building. But if they're out in their normal area where we are, then they're able to smoke outside there. We're not going to condone that smoking while they're working with us. For the first 1 or 2 times, we'll explain that to them while we're here. We don't want to be seen as we're provoking you smoking. So if you can go over to that side a little bit, or we'll remove ourselves, then we can work on that area. But most people, once you get talking to them, they don't smoke in front of you, they don't do any of the antisocial behaviour, they don't do all the stuff that people presume that they're going to be doing, even though that half of it's not happening. So yeah, it's just a good environment for young people and for us, and they can remove themselves at any time.
When you go out, it's not just like you're gonna approach people and sit and talk with them. It's also, as I'm set to believe, it's also fun activities they can engage with, but also have serious discussions with.
Of course, yeah. The initial engagement when we first go up to young people is, hello, can I introduce myself, tell you what I am, who I am, what I do, and then it's all down to the young people then. So you get to build up that relationship with them young people. Once you've built up that positive relationship with young people by doing the sports engagement side of it, doing the bits of music, you get to the nitty gritty types of things that's inside there. They'll come to you because you're that support that knows the services that's able to safeguard them. So it's not always just about engaging by conversation. Sometimes you'll be finding out what they want to do. So for example, if they go to a youth centre, you've got all the bits of provision that's inside there, all the engaging side. You've got the pool tables, you've got table tennis, you've got different activities that they do. But whereas us, we're detached. So I walk around with a big bag on my back, and I've got my car quite close to me. So I have sports equipment inside there, inside my car, inside my bag. I have team building exercises, I have flip chart, I have loads of different engagement tools that I can get them young people to talk about issues within the area. So one of the first things that we go up and when we talk to them is we say, can we introduce ourselves, this is what we do, and then we ask them what is the good things and the bad things that's inside the area, what do they like, what don't they like, and then we can work with them to try and make it a better place for young people and give young people a voice within their community as well. If they're saying that they haven't got any sports, health and fitness within the area, or the schools aren't giving them enough mental health support or any other types of support, then we can work with the schools and get in touch with them, and we can work closely with councils and so on to make sure that we're giving them the good stuff that's inside the area as well.
Okay, so I do have a question. You know, you said that, you know, you introduce yourself. This goes back to my younger self. Like nowadays, I'm a lot better with social communication. But when I was younger, I was a lot more closed in. So putting myself in a situation, as you said, like I'd be at a bus stop, at a park or whatever. So am I right to assume that like I could be minding my own business, and then you will approach me and you'd start talking? Is that what you mean, like?
Yeah. So when I first go up to a group, we're set when we first get our contract. We're set out to do a set amount of days, set amount of times, stuff like that. So we start going out into the areas, recceing the areas, finding out what's the best time for us to go out and put our provision on for them young people. Once we've done that, we'll figure out a time that we'll be going out there. So it might be like for Leeds, I go out from 5 o'clock till around about 8-9 o'clock at night. And then you start to build up a relationship with them young people. When I first go up, I introduce myself. They don't have to talk to me. Most of them will always be polite and say, yeah, you can introduce yourself. 99.9% of them will. And they don't have to do any of the talking. I'll try and get a little bit of information out of them, but if they don't want to give it, they don't have to give it, and then I can walk away. They don't have to give any names, they don't have to give any addresses, they don't have to give anything at all. So we build up over a amount of time, over a couple of weeks, that relationship of who we are, what we do. We'll show them our website, we'll show them our social media, we'll show them what we're doing in all other areas. We'll talk about what we're doing in other areas with other different people, because it's not always just one set thing. Over detached youth work, I've done many different things. So it could be that I'm going out teaching young people how to do CPR. So I'll walk around with my big CPR bag, and then the young people want to know what that is anyway. So you go introduce yourself, and then they'll ask you, what's that big CPR bag on your back? You tell them what it is. You tell them that you're able to teach them how to do a CPR project, and they'll get a certificate by the end of it. It'll take them around about 45 minutes, and then it just gets them doing it. Not everybody's going to engage with it though, and that's the same with the provision that's inside youth clubs or anything like that. Not everybody's going to engage with that side of it. So it's just putting that extra little bit inside there that they can access if they want to. But you do build up a really good relationship with them, so then they start to trust you, they start to get used to you being there, you know what I mean? So
yeah, because the reason why I wanted to ask, because you said in your own words how trust is built over the course of weeks, and that makes sense. the reason why I needed to ask this is, again, if I was my younger self, feeling antisocial, minding my own business, and no disrespect, but if someone approached me and started talking to me in my antisocial state, I might feel intimidated by this individual. Obviously, as you said, like, you know, you respect boundaries, you may ask questions, you may get talking, but as you said, they don't have to answer said questions if they don't feel comfortable. But even if this individual does feel uncomfortable, you again respect those boundaries, and then you build up over the course of time. Basically address that you aren't a threat, you are trying to help.
I don't have a choice.
Yeah, it's one of them, like, sometimes we'll get people that are put on with us. So Christian, for example, with the Positive Masculinity program, he got told about us, it was his option to come on to that program.
I didn't get told about it. I remember a person at college, because you did it via college, I just remember saying, I've signed you up for this, I think it would be a bit of fun for you. He said, alright. He said, you just need to show up there at this time, and I did.
And was it fun?
Yeah, it was spot on, that was.
There you go then. See, so sometimes people get put onto us. Sometimes it's a voluntary side of it. Sometimes it's just engaging and getting them young people to engage with us as well. But all the time, it's all on a voluntary basis. A young person can opt out at any time.
Well, as you just pointed out, positive masculinity, that was going to be the main focus of today's episode. So, treating me like I have no idea what it is, could you explain what that is?
So the Positive Masculinity program that we've got running over at Wakefield College at the minute is a program based around influences that's all around inside our society. So that could be your values, your beliefs, your positive role models, which was inside there. Influences of porn. It could be your, like, the man don't cry type of thing. If you look on television these days, with the amount of people that's doing things around positive mental health and positive mental well-being and stuff like that, it's making sure that everybody has somebody to be able to talk to. As we know with news and stuff like that, on average 86 males commit suicide every single week inside the UK, and we're wanting to try and bring that down and find out what the reasons are. 3 out of 4 people that commit suicide are male. So we're trying to find out what are the ways that we can try and reduce that, and that's by probably getting young people or men to open up a little bit more, show that they've got that support inside the area, because all that support's out there. It's just that men in general don't access that support, and we want to find it's many different reasons why. It could be that people say men don't cry, man up, all this types of stuff. So we wanting to find out what a 2021 man is. And what does it take for that? You've got different things on television, you've got different things on social media that say you're supposed to act in a set way, you're supposed to look in a set way, you're supposed to eat in a set way. And these aren't realistic things, so we need to make sure that young people know that all this stuff that's on there is photoshopped, it's gone through different things to be able to make that person look that way. You know what I mean? By, if you look at the television, you look at movies, you look at Marvel, you look at Avengers, stuff like that, then they've been having to go to the gym constantly to be able to stay to that set weight, to be able to fit in that set uniform, so they look that part of a superhero. And then that's not realistic for a young person that's going to school, that's going home, they're playing on the Xbox, they're doing all these different things, and they're not able to go to the gym for 6 hours a day to be able to get to that. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but to add on to that, what you were saying about the Avengers and that, I'm not sure if you've seen the series The Witcher on Netflix, and I can't remember the actor's name. There's a certain scene where he's in the bath and, you know, whatever, scene plays out. And I don't know if this is true, but supposedly what he did to have that muscular physique is he didn't drink water for 3 days, so he was dehydrated. And obviously, you know, water has weight, you know, a lot of people have water weight in that. But yeah, you're talking like this is actually a common thing for actors, where they, to make themselves look more toned, they would dehydrate themselves. And I think what's his name, the fellow who plays Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, I think I don't know if it was him, but I was talking to my brother about this topic. You know, Hugh Jackman does the same, you know, dehydrating himself to make himself look more muscular. And I think if it wasn't him, it was definitely someone in a similar situation, where it's not uncommon for an actor to pass out from dehydration while recording. So
yeah,
it's like,
it's unhealthy, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, I believe, and I'm no fitness expert, but I believe a healthy amount of body fat on the body. I believe it's like more than like maybe 5%. And again, I could be wrong, but to get this muscular physique, you need like 2%. So assuming I'm right and it's 5%, that's less than half the, what you're meant to be having just to look like, this, perfect fitness and that.
Yeah, the one that they call normal.
Yeah, it's like, because even with myself, like, I'll admit, when I was playing games, like watching films as a kid, and I would see that physique, and I wanted that physique. And as I got older, now, I've always been skinny. I'm not a big food eater, but I always wanted that physique, and I'd always try and achieve it as best I could. And even nowadays, I'm still quite skinny. But the thing that I realized was when I was 23, is I did this really strict workout routine. I felt like I actually achieved, like I was still thin, but I was fairly toned, and I felt like I achieved that look. But then realizing, I'm still quite thin, I need to put on some weight, I obviously packed in the working out so I wasn't burning off as many calories, started to, make my own protein shakes, so it's actually, and I was essentially gaining weight, and I gained maybe 1.5 stones, and whereas I wasn't as toned, everyone around me said I looked healthier for it. We're talking, I had achieved this iconic look, but I looked unhealthy. But then I actually lose the iconic look and then I look healthier. So that's kind of like the realization for myself when I was like, is this goal that I've been wanting since I was a kid really something I want?
Yeah, the mental health, the physical health, all tie in together. If you're going to the gym and it's doing you benefits, then that's really good. But if it's also doing you relationship negative benefits inside there, well, it's not going to be benefits, is it? But negative relationships, then it's affecting your life in general. So that can affect your mental health. If you're going to the gym, yeah, you're feeling great, your body's looking great and stuff like that. But it can also affect the way that you have your personal relationship with your family, with your partner or anything like that. So you need to have a little bit of a balance. They say a work-life balance, which it's a mental and physical balance as well that we need to have inside there, because we get forced into things by society. I mean, advertising's always there to be able to say, eat this, eat that, do this, do that, get out, do this. Everything's just a bit complicated, and all we ever see on social media is everybody putting up the positive sides of them things. I mean, nobody ever puts up the negative sides of them things. So for example, I've got a friend, he's a really, really big muscly guy, and he put up a negative, not a negative post, but he put up a post about steroids the other day, and around how it stopped his infertility, and how it affects his mental health, how it affects all his body and stuff like that. So there's negatives to that as well as the positives, that he looks absolutely fantastic, and it's illegal what he's doing, but he needs to make sure that he's working on both sides. He's gone for that look because he was insecure about himself. You know what I mean? He just needs that recognition from people that I look fantastic. But in reality, he looked fantastic anyway, and everybody has them insecurities. Everybody has that self-esteem issues and stuff like that. But we need to work on them and not let it affect our life in any way.
When you said about you look at yourself and you think, oh, I'm not attractive, and you want the approval of others, when in reality you don't look so bad.
No, I'm sexy. You're fine.
Good attitudes, actually. But the point I'm getting at is, I don't know what it was advertising. But I watched this advert a while ago, and he had this artist, and he didn't look at the person he was, drawing, but it was to prove, I believe it was to prove how you are prettier, or you are handsome, or whatever the term you prefer to use. You are better looking than you realise. So you have, say, the first woman would walk on, and the fella wouldn't look at her, he would just draw the way the woman would describe herself. And then another woman would come in, and this time round, the second woman would describe how the first woman looks, and then you would put the pictures side by side, and always the first picture there wasn't an unattractive woman, but the second picture would always look more attractive, and this was essentially to prove that whereas you may bring yourself down for your appearance and that, the rest of the world doesn't actually see you like that. Like, going back to, saying about, male masculinity and all that, like, even with myself, Like, I've always had like an issue with black bags under my eyes, and it was only until recent years that I realised they're not that bad. I mean, when I was younger, and again, always been skinny, barely ate, they probably looked worse when I was younger, because I'm not saying I was malnourished, but with not eating that much, my skin was paler, so obviously my eyes would look worse. But as I've gotten older and I actually eat properly now, the black bags aren't as noticeable, and I honestly felt as if like it was a bad thing, but no one comments on it. Like, no one actually states it's not an issue, and it took me a while to realise that maybe they're not just saying that to be nice. Maybe they're saying that because they actually mean it.
Well,
And I think that's the issue.
It's always easier to find small flaws in yourself, and then once you've found that flaw, since you notice it more and more, it becomes a more prompt worry in your life than
Pretty
if
much.
you never noticed it before.
Well, I
Yeah,
think the point...
you're the one that's
Go on.
standing in front of your mirror, aren't you? At the end of the day, you're the one that's looking at yourself more than anybody else. So we do have this thing inside us that looks for all that negative parts. We don't look at all you think the last time you looked at yourself and thought that looks good, you know what I mean? Mostly it's the negative that we're looking for, because of the ways that social media and stuff like that, the pictures that are doctored and so on, because we want that look. So for me, for example, I'm 42 years old. I've got a little bit of a tummy on me. I'm not the fittest, I'm not the healthiest, but I'm happy, you know what I mean? But there's set things that I'd love to change, but in reality we can't change what we are, you know what I mean? Unless we go for plastic surgery and stuff like that, but then you have to have different things, different tests to make sure that you're mentally stable to be able to have that, you're making the right choices to be able to have that. And it's
I don't
yeah,
think
it's one
plastic
of
surgery should be a thing. If it's medically necessary, that, let's say you've had an incident and it generally will make your life better, I agree. But if you want it just to try and, quotation mark, improve yourself, there's nothing that you can really improve with yourself, because nobody knows the upgraded self. There's not such a thing where, oh, you can upgrade to this model or something like that. You can't, because it's just you've got you, and you don't really, you're original. You don't want to change that.
Well, whereas I do agree with you on that, Christian, technically speaking, if someone, as we discussed, they look at themselves in the mirror, they don't like what they see. Like, it's common for like people to get the lips done. Now, personally, this is just my opinion. Like, personally, you get these people who think thicker lips are attractive. I'm the opposite. But then you have these people who, they've got thin lips and I think they look attractive, but they obviously don't see themselves like that. So they get work done on their lips. And whereas, as you said, Christian, you know, it's like only do it for medical reasons, but technically speaking, if they don't see themselves as attractive, it's affecting their mood, isn't it? So would that technically be for medical reasons? Obviously, as the topic today is, they, you know, it's not, they shouldn't feel ashamed for how they look, but then at the same time, it's one of them where what they're feeling, like, bring themselves down. It's like they need to realise that they don't look unattractive, as bad. They don't look as bad as they think. But unfortunately, with the way society's gone, like I said, with having thicker lips, a lot of people seem to think, no, that is attractive. So the average person might think, oh, okay, so if that's the in thing, then I think it's attractive as well. And maybe this is just an Aspergic point of view, but I did have a word about my brother about this, because if you saw me and my brother side by side, you will notice that my brother is the type of person where he'll dress in bright colours and he wants to be the centre of attention. Now, that's not a bad trait. But then you've got myself, where I'm the opposite, where I will wear dull colours and I will not be the centre of
Just wants to
attention.
blend in the background.
Exactly. He prefers to do it his way, I prefer to do it my way. I will admit I'm very antisocial, and I've always been like that. I can I mean, we're talking right now, Jodie, first time meeting you, and I'm having no issues talking to you. It's like,
Good.
I can socialise, I just choose not to.
Online is a bit different, though.
Yeah, maybe
Well-
so, but the point that I'm getting at is, the reason why I wanted to talk more about this is because I've had countless conversations with my brother where I'm basically spelling it out that too many people are too busy trying to impress those around them rather than doing what's best for them.
Yeah, I think that we're all individuals at the end of the day. We've all had different life experiences. We've all
Yeah.
had different values. We've all been brought up in different ways. You know what I mean? So that makes us who we are. Just because somebody is lacking the self-confidence or confidence in general. Don't mean that's a bad thing. It's that we can try and help them people gain that confidence. You shouldn't put them in, it's like a fight or flight situation, or putting them into a comfort zone. If you put somebody into their comfort zone, they feel really good. If you put them into the panic zone, which is the third layer out, they're gonna run away. They're not gonna learn anything from that. But if you put them into the middle area, then they're gonna learn something. They're gonna gain something. So then they're gonna be stretching their education, their life, their different experiences, and taking themselves out of that negative area that they don't want to be inside a room with a load of people. For example, if I went and to a conference or anything like that, I don't mind talking on here. I don't mind going up to young people that I've never met out on the street. I don't mind going into a classroom and talking to that. But if I'm going up to a group of educated adults, that really puts me under pressure, and I won't like to do that. So we all have our strengths and weaknesses in all these different areas. As long as it's not affecting our mental health and our mental well-being and the way that people are saying things to us, they want to bring us up. So by saying, oh, you should be able to do this, why don't you try this, why don't you try that, and all this, that, and other, if it affects them and it makes them anxious and makes them more withdrawn, puts up even more barriers, then it's having a negative effect on them. Some people can be kicked in the backside to be able to force to do things like, oh, get out and go and do this, that, and the other, get out and meet people. Some people can take that, but some people will close themselves in even more, and that can lead to different types of stuff. That can lead to isolation, that can lead to depression, it can lead to the suicide on the really far end of that. But it's about knowing what support's there as well for every single area. You know what I mean? The small thing that you have, if you had a small thing, to me, that's a small thing, but a big thing to me might be a small thing to you. So we all have these different insecurities and these different confidence issues and stuff like that. It's just managing them and making sure that they're not affecting any part of our life, our relationship, or anything like that. Or we're not putting them on anybody else, belittling people, bullying people, or anything, and so on.
Well, yeah, it's like, so jumping on to what you were saying, it's like I'm the type of person where if someone who I know is feeling low, I will reach out to them and help them as best I can. But most of the time, they tend to reach out to me. I don't mind being the one that they need to talk to. I mean, I've made jokes with Christian about it, where I say that I'm the therapist of the group. And I don't mind being that person, because we all need someone to talk to, and if that individual thinks that they can rely on me, then I'm more than happy to be that person. Because from personal experience, I've had it where I felt like I had no one, and it's a horrible feeling. But what you were saying about, comfort zones and that, it did make me think how there was something that I did. Now, I'll admit fault for this, but of course, I still talk to the individuals, so, it's in the past, we've moved forward. But I know that I basically what I'm getting at is, I had this conversation with an individual, they were feeling low. To say it simply, I was saying to them in my own words that I'm here to support them, are you alright, blah blah blah, but then I didn't realise until it was too late that I was crossing a line. What it was is they needed their own space. You do have some people who they need to be reminded that they've got the support there, that you are there to help them, checking in on them every hour or so, if they're feeling low. But then you have people on the other end of the scale where they feel as if, no, I need my space. And admittedly, I don't know if it was due to the Asperger's or what, but I realised that I was crossing the line because this individual wanted their space. So I was like, oh shit, I need to back off here. And I backed off from them, but then I'm, still kept talking to them for a couple of weeks after. And yeah, it was one of them where they may have not spoken to me for maybe a week or so, but on and off we would talk, and then things would improve for them, and they felt as if that I was someone that they could rely on, because whereas I was trying to help and whereas I was arguably crossing the line, I also admitted boundaries. Well, that's it. I admitted fault, that I realised, oh, hang on a minute, I'm going too far here. Okay, fair enough. I apologise for that. I didn't realise I was doing that. So tell you what, if you need your own space, I will give you space. If you want to reach out to me, then I'll let you do that on your own terms.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing. I think what you've explained there is doing reflection. Lads and stuff like that don't really reflect on what they've done.
No.
So, for example, there's a lot of banter that goes around, even within my friendship groups and stuff like that. Then there's a lot of banter that we go on with each other. But every now and again, we might overstep that mark of that banter. We've took the piss out of somebody for a certain thing, but that might be an insecurity for that young person or that person. So we need to go back to him and think, right, and message him, give him a phone call. I'm sorry that I said that. I was probably a little bit below the belt. Let them come back at you and say that, oh no, it was fine, it's all right and stuff. But if you know what I mean, you need to make sure that we're not overstepping them, and make sure that they do understand that it is banter, because sometimes you can say a bit of banter to somebody, they'll have a laugh with you and it's inside with the lads and so on, but then they have to go home, and then that insecurity, they think to themselves, oh, they really think that about me. They really taken it in that way, you know what I mean? So that can affect your mental health, your mental well-being and so on. So we need to think a little bit openly and just put out that extra hand every now and again. It's not always just, it's not a natural thing really for a man to do because of society, to say, are you all right, how you doing? If you look on the television these days, you've got mental health with Prince William, you've got Freddie Flintoff, you've got Professor Green, you've got lots of different influences that are these big men that are rich, that are good looking and this, that and the other, but it still affects them as well as it affects the everyday man that's just walking around the street. You know what I mean? But we just close it down. We keep these things bottled up, and then what that can do is just be a big pressure cooker, and it can go into anger. It can go into doing isolation. You know what I mean? So we just need to make sure that we're supporting our friendship groups that's there.
Definitely.
Everything that we talk about in general, you talk about your relationships, you talk about work, you talk about this, that and the other, and we have different faces for different things. We put on different faces, we act in a certain way as we're going to meet different types of people. The stuff that I'd say with my mates, I won't necessarily go up to my work people or the young people that I work with and act in the same way. We act around different people in different ways, but we need to make sure that we need to listen to what these people are saying as well and give them a chance to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not always just about the banter. We always have a lot of banter. I go to car shows, I'm a car enthusiast. So there's a lot of banter inside that area. But if somebody's calling my car, I put a lot of work inside that. And it's only a small thing to somebody that doesn't know about cars. But if somebody's ripping into my car, like, I'm coming home, I'm thinking, right, I need to change all that. It's affecting my mental health.
I definitely had a scenario like that when I first joined the group with Stephen and our other little group of friends. Since it was obviously first joining, you don't know how the inner workings of other people work, and with the group everybody had their own little issues, but it just worked. But since I joined in and I didn't know that, sometimes sarcasm, because I can be very sarcastic at times, and I didn't realise, and I accidentally insulted someone, and not knowing I did it, because sometimes I can be very unaware of situations like that, but I did try my best and did resolve the issue, but it's sometimes the unknowingness side of it as well, because sometimes banter's good, yes, but sometimes when you don't know it is banter, and sometimes it could be or couldn't be banter, sometimes that's where it can go wrong unintentionally. You could be still thinking it's banter, but they could be in a different mood and have switched to serious mode and not have realised it stuff is now being taken to heart.
Well, it's just onto that topic. I do need to point out, like, talking about a more recent example, like those who are listening, they may have listened to the 4th episode that we recorded just not yesterday, the day before. They may have not noticed because the way I've edited it, but the way things were going, I stated in the podcast that talking about creativity is something I'm fairly passionate about, and we briefly discussed that before we started recording. And since I wanted to talk to my friends about this on the podcast and they were just taking the piss for, you know, humorous purposes, I was getting annoyed. And it wasn't until after the recording that I basically spelt it out for them. I basically said in my own words, you crossed the line and I'm really annoyed. And Christian went out of his way to message me to apologise. He was even saying down the mic how he was sorry. I could hear it in his voice that he was being genuine. But we're talking, it's literally 2 days after. You know, we're still getting on. We've moved past it. But it was one of them where I didn't hide from the fact that I was annoyed, but I still waited until after the podcast. But even still, you know, at the end of the day, yes, there may be a 10-year gap between me and Christian, but you could go as far as to say that if there's something bothering you, you need to own up. And if you know crossing the line and all that, I suppose it can be simplified by saying the phrase communication is key. And if there is something that is bothering you, you shouldn't feel the need to bottle it up. Don't get me wrong, yes, when we were recording it, it was bothering me, and I waited till after to mention it. But it was still one of them where I felt the need to mention it. Christian realised he crossed the line, and then Christian apologised
we
for
were both, as you were saying, we were both able to get our views on the situation across, but didn't do it in the sense where it was negative. We made it sure that we both understand each other's perspective and got through it.
Exactly. If I'm being honest, like, put it this way, me and Christian, we make jokes about it. What happened the other day, it wasn't the first time where Christian had crossed the line. And again, you know, social cues and all that, you know, I'm more open-minded, so I get it. If Christian crossed the line because he's not understanding certain social cues, I myself was like that when I was younger. So whereas I may get annoyed, I have had private words with him and stated, look, you are crossing the line here, fair enough. And he's like, okay, yeah, fair enough. You just got to let me know. And we even had this joke where I was antisocial for a couple of months. I needed my own space, focusing on my own thing.
Antisocial? You disappeared for a month.
And the rest. Yeah, I disappeared longer than that. But yeah, it was one of them where, because my way of dealing with things is, like, again, as I said, I'm quite passionate about being creative. I was focusing on creative hobbies. Every so often, you know, seeing how people are doing and all, I wasn't just, you know, completely antisocial, but this was my way of dealing with it. After speaking to Christian for the first time in a long time, he then goes, I've been good, Steve. It's been ages since you've last told me off. And I was like, well, I haven't been on, have I? So, yeah. Going back to what I was saying, like, you know, communication is key. But going back further, there was something I wanted to mention. You know, we were saying about Facebook, how, you know, you're trying to portray that you're this positive person, and that there's two things in particular that came to mind when you said that. I'm scrolling through memes one time, and I saw this meme, and what it was, you had this fella in a car, and he's just recording some other guy who's like at a pub or something, and guessing by the light, and it's midday, and he picks up a beer, and he takes a selfie with the beer. And then he puts the beer down and then he grabs the water. So basically what's going on is, it's just, this recording is proving that this individual he's making out that he's the party animal, when in reality he's trying his best to keep this physique, you know, healthy and, you know, and all that stuff. So of course that kind of ties into what we were saying. But then there was another thing. When it comes to people putting filters on their pictures, people of all shapes and sizes are uploading pictures of themselves and then they put filters on it. And I'm one of them. I don't like putting filters on, because if you ever heard the saying, a picture has 1,000 words, I just turned to my brother and said, yeah, well, the amount of filters people use, yes, a picture has 1,000 words, but sometimes those words are lies. I don't mean that in an assaulting way. What I mean is, these individuals, they shouldn't feel like they've got to change how they look to get the approval of other people. Like, if you, like, to say how it is, if you've got someone, if you've got, say, a woman, for example, where she thinks she's overweight, when in reality she's got a good figure on her, or even a fella where he thinks he's, you know, he's overweight. Actually, yeah, for both scenarios, you've got two individuals, they both think they're overweight, when in reality they've got good figures on them, but then they will go to extremes to, you know, reduce how they look. So there was one fella that I knew, and I won't say his name, but he had a good build on him, and I'll admit, because I keep in mind, since I was always skinny, I was jealous of his build, but he felt he was overweight, so he went to the extreme to lose that weight to the point where he looked unhealthy. Whereas you have other individuals, they'll take a selfie, but what they'll do is they'll stand at a certain angle and they'll put in countless filters to hide, like maybe even just change the shape of their jawline. Even without those filters, they are quite attractive, but they don't see themselves that way. And I do believe that that is a big problem, because, as I said, they're trying to seek the approval of those around them, when I know it's like, I know I'm rambling, but we briefly discussed on the last episode how I even wanted the approval of other people. It wasn't for my appearance, but the hobby that I did, and I would feel bad when I wouldn't get the approval I was seeking. And I guess the point I'm getting at is, it took me a long time to realize I don't need the approval of strangers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah, it's like, because again, we could go into it. Like, tell you what, talking about discussing mental health and that, because this is a topic I have been wanting to talk about. So Jodie, so how would you like approach like the topic with mental health?
How do you mean with the topic with mental health?
Well, so for starters, let's talk about a more common issue with mental health, like a most common one being depression. So you've got an individual who's depressed, and you're talking to the individual. You've worked out that they're depressed, so your instinct is, right, okay, how do I go about this? So what would you do about that?
Right, so with depression, you need to think about that person as a whole. What is it that's affecting their life? Sometimes they don't know what it is that's affecting our life, but quite a lot of the time they do. So it could be the isolation, it could be work worries, it could be relationship worries, it could be alcohol and substance misuse, it could be absolutely anything that's in there. But you need to have that relationship with that young person, or that person in general, to make sure that they know that they've got that problem as well. Because when you've got anxiety, depression, all them types of things, sometimes it's the first step just to go to your GP, just to say that you've got that little bit of a problem and that you need help. But as a man, quite a lot of us don't even say that we need that little bit of help. You know what I mean? People, I was said to the group yesterday, if you think of when you was younger and you was driving down the road with your dad and you got a little bit lost, he wouldn't even ask the person on the side of the street for a little bit of help, and that was just a small thing, you know what I mean, to try and find his way back to where he needed to go. So if we think about how we're like in society, that we block out all these things. We don't ask for support with our relationship from our friends. We don't ask for support with our money problems for our friends. If we do, then that's a really good thing. But all these pressures start to build up on you every single day. You turn up late to work. That's your well-being that's going down. Each type of thing that's putting that pressure on can cause more and more different things to you. So you have to be able to support that young person, or that person in general, to be able to go through the steps, to take that first step, to go to the doctors, find out if it is depression, how can we sort this, look at the different areas of why this depression has come. If it's around money, look at that side of it, look at the health and fitness side of it, look at the social skills with these people, with the education. What is it that's causing this problem? We can't just say that, right, you've got depression, that's it. You've got to look all the way around, and you've got to have a good relationship with that person to be able to talk about them issues. But in general, what you do, me for example, this is just a coping strategy that I have, right? So I can count, say, 5 friends that I will talk to about different types of issues on different topics. So relationship issues, I'll go to one guy. Money issues, I'll go to another guy. All different things, I'll go to different people. So then they've not got all the information to be able to use against me. You know what I mean? If I go and put all my trust in one person, then that's not a good thing for me. I do it in a different way, that I spread that thing out, and then I can go for different advice off different people. You don't necessarily need a whole group to give you that advice. You just need one person. And it might be that you go to a support agency, it might be that you need to go to a doctor, a GP, a consultant, or anything like that, to be able to talk about these issues, or family, or a friend. You just need to open up at that little bit.
It is interesting that you worded it that way. You know, how you said how you've got multiple individuals, and you talk to one individual about one topic, talk about another topic with someone else. It's interesting your choice of wording there about, so you said in your own words, you wouldn't offload all your information to one individual in case of fear that they would use that against you. Now, the reason why I think it's interesting is, for starters, I know a few people that do that, and in a weird way, it's like you got this subconscious thought that they could betray you, but the reality is, a good chance they won't do that. Now, I don't know the individuals you're talking to, but what I think is interesting is, even though you are essentially dealing with your problems in a healthy way, you've still got that thought at the back of your head, and
of
that
course,
is something. Yeah, so what I think is interesting about that is, like, even with myself, like, I was diagnosed with depression at the age of 20, but it was only maybe, I don't know, like we're talking at the age of 21, I didn't take antidepressants, and I still don't take antidepressants. And I felt as if for a long time that I had beaten depression. But I realised as I was getting older, like looking more into depression, how it was way more complicated than just feeling sad. Like there are many ways people can offload their emotions. Like it's a chemical imbalance in the brain, isn't it? So we're talking like myself, my younger self, like I didn't realize it at the time, but I would be short-tempered. I would, be quick to anger. I wouldn't smash anything. I wasn't that bad, but I found out around about this time that that in itself is a way of, like I'm not showing depression in what people would expect. But I was still showing signs of depression, and it made me realize it's like I didn't think of that. Going back to what you were saying about talking to people, how someone's feeling sad, bottling it up, and it does actually remind me of a scenario that I was in a few years back, and I know the reason why I was feeling depressed. I was at this house party and I was hanging out with college mates, and I'd realised that these mates, they do not interact with me outside of college and outside of these house parties. I really like hanging out with these people, but I know that after this party I'm not going to see them again. So it made me feel really sad. And I was just sat there feeling sorry for myself. And I remember like a few individuals, they were basically asking me what's up. I'm explaining to them what's up. So I'm expressing my feelings. And they're saying in their own words, it won't come to that. And I'm expressing to them, no, I know it's going to come to that. But they're doing the best that they can. But then you had other individuals who were saying in their own words, now I'm not going to name her, because to say how it is, she's not a bad girl, but the way she handled it, looking back, was very insensitive.
Yeah.
And she was going through her own issues. And to say how it is, again, I'm not going to name her, but around about this time where I was feeling bad, unfortunately, her mother had passed away. But her way of dealing with that was drinking heavily. And her words, something between the lines of, my mum's just passed away, I've got reason to feel sad, you haven't. And that really jumped out to me because there are quite a few people who have that attitude. And like, where is this may have continued? Like, even back when MSN was a thing, she said in her own words, saying that people aren't going to want to hang out with you if you're sat there moping about. It's one of them where the point I'm getting at is, you're talking, I had an issue, and funny thing is, whereas I was feeling sad because I felt like I wasn't going to see those circle of friends again, I was right. I didn't see them again after that, so I had reason to feel sad. But the point is, this individual was saying to me, stop being sad, you've got no right to be sad. And it's not the only example that I can think of where someone's done that. And don't get me wrong, if you're feeling down, obviously, if I can help that, then fair enough. But you do not turn to someone, you shouldn't feel sad, cheer up, like, doesn't matter what your gender is. Like, you shouldn't sit there and go, grow a spine, you can handle it. You think you can't, but you can. Now, don't get me wrong, I will have the attitude to some people where it's like, no, you are stronger than you think, you can handle it. But it's like, the best way I can word it in like that comparison is, the way you word it, the tone, like trying to come across as supportive, like, yes, you can handle it. You think you can't, but you can. I believe in you. And then you've got, you can handle this, you think you can't, but, pack it in, grow up. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking, it's the same message, yes, but worded slightly different. And obviously the tone, you know what I mean?
With communication, you can obviously get your point across and help people, but nowadays, people are scared to communicate. Even when I was in high school, which isn't that long ago, obviously, but it was always the case of, I'll knock, you talk, and it's like, well, you're in a safe environment. He's someone it's a teacher it's not like he's going to just look at you and judge you, because he can, but he won't. But people are scared of speaking. I've seen once me and my friends went to laser tag, and they were scared to go ask to book it. They were scared to speak to somebody else, and that's one problem of nowadays. People are generally scared to talk.
Do you think that's through the types of way that we're communicating these days? So with mobile phones, it's all done by text. with Messenger. It's all done by text. With the way that we're doing it today, I can't see the way that your body language is. I can't read you properly. I can't see your facial expressions. So it has a negative effect on us as well. You know what I mean? I'm just walking around my living room with my headset on, looking at a clock, looking at this, that, and the other. I can't read exactly what you're saying. You know what I mean? I can't see if you're smiling now. It does scare some people, like especially these people during COVID-19 that have had loads and loads and loads of time out of school and stuff like that, and then they've got that isolation that they're staying inside, and then they have to go back to school. Some of these young people these days are having really big mental health problems that are going to affect their confidence, their self-esteem and everything else, because when they go back into school, they've got to talk to real people again. It's not sat behind a screen. They can't go and turn the computer monitor off, the camera off or anything like that, and they've got to be able to speak as well. Like we're doing it as a podcast today, but most people, you ask them these days, they just type messages to the phone, even if they're near enough next to each other, that they're doing these messages to each other.
Yes.
What that text does don't have any emotion inside there, except for if you put capitals and this, that, and the other. But sometimes you make a mistake and you put capitals, so it can be read in all different types of ways. So that can cause insecurities inside people as well. So I think by meeting people face to face is the best way that we can communicate with each other.
Yeah, I'm same with Christian on this one. I completely agree, because what you were saying about not being able to see us, and I could be getting the percentage wrong, and I believe I have mentioned this prior, but verbal communication is only sort of like 20%, and the rest is like body language. As you said, sitting like facing someone, like I do know limited stuff, but when it comes to social communication face to face, like what their expression is on their face, like we're talking like comedians can make jokes about it, like the way the eyebrows are sitting and that. But it's like, even if your torso is facing the individual, this can basically indicate that they are interested in the topic you are talking about. But I do believe that communication via online, whether it's messaging or even like now, yeah, there is a huge downside. The way I'd word it is, like the way we're talking now, it forms like a false confidence of sorts. Like Christian even pointed out before, when I said that, social cues or communication, how first time talking to you, I'm okay with it. As rightly pointed out, Christian said, yeah, well, it's online, it's not face to face. But then you've even got these people, like on the Xbox, you've got, I don't know, playing Call of Duty, for example, where you'll have these 10-year-old kids mouthing off.
Yeah, effing and jeffing at you, and then they could just...
Exactly.
Stood in front of you, they'd be terrified to even say hello.
Yeah, but it's one of them, like, we're talking, they range from 10-year-old kids to people in their late 20s, where they will talk the talk, they will mouth off like they're the big I am, but then when it's... But yeah, I suppose so, yeah. Like, when it's face-to-face, it's completely different. Like, I've had it where I've met up... Hang on a minute, you're going to have to continue this conversation. My brother's calling me, I do apologise.
No problem. But yeah, people talking online and just thinking that they can get advantage of you, not knowing who you are, but they'll start going through things to try and find that little crack in your psyche that they can get you down on. But if it was in person to person, they just wouldn't know what to speak. And youths nowadays, they know that much online talk, they know that much. I wouldn't say video games cause violence, I'd say it gives them the opportunity to learn certain ways of language and think, oh, since that person in my game can swear and shout to people, why can't I? It's becoming a more regular basis.
So you said that video games don't cause violence, or don't...
I wouldn't say cause physical violence. I say if people misinterpret what they see on screen for real life, yes, but if we can teach children at a young age to associate what is in there is allowed there in that virtual world, not swearing at other people, but let's say you're going up and punching a guy in a video game, as long as they understand punching that guy in that video game is different to walking up to someone in real life and doing it, that's okay. But if they don't know how to dissociate from games and real life, because I've got my friend, a young friend who has issues like that. Sometimes he can't switch off on a game, so if he's in Fortnite killing people, he might have to take an hour just to stay like in a privatized area, just so he can dissociate himself from the game, so he doesn't actually do it. But we do need to teach certain people or make people understand that what's in that virtual world has to stay there, because I think that's what causes the issues of people doing things in real life, is not knowing how to dissociate from it.
I think that's why you have like age limits and age restrictions on set games, like you said with Call of Duty, and you said that there was like 10 to 13-year-olds trolling people on there and stuff like that. In reality, them young people shouldn't be on there because of the language that's inside there, because of the violence that's inside there, and because they can't distinguish between the reality and the gameplay and stuff like that. Then they need to be able to learn them social skills, that respect and so on, and then values before they get put into that type of situation, before they're hearing the bad language, and when that bad language is supposed to be acceptable, even though quite a lot of bad language isn't acceptable, that young people won't know when they can use that bad language. So when we go out on Detached, we hear lots and lots of big bad language. That could have been through friendship groups, that could have been through gaming, that could have been through parenting, it could have been through a lot of many different things, also, or videos and so on. So the young people are just trying to find their own identity, and as long as these games with the violence and stuff like that don't affect them, then yeah, they can go on to lead positive lives and know when to use any of that negativity, which we shouldn't be using anyway.
You know, it's just like, it's interesting that you point that out, like, you know, trying to find the ideal self, like, you know, your individuality and that. I suppose, like, it's, you know, tying back to masculinity and that. Say a male role model, having like for example a father figure. So the father like may come across as you know, bit, you know, man's man. Like, you know, they might not open up, but then they have the attitude to, like, maybe they might come across as caring 1 minute, but when they get annoyed, they get you know, they address it to the point or whatever. Like, personally, I'm not really too like familiar with that saying. Like, I've always thought that it does mean, oh, this individual bottles stuff up. And before I continue though, my brother is just knocking at the door. So Christian, what time are we on?
We're pretty much at an hour now, so I think wrapping it up would be the best.
Right, okay. I'm going to have to disappear. I'm sorry I can't be for the end of the podcast, but it was nice talking to you, Jody. I'm going to have to get off earlier.
Jody, I'm afraid we've come to the end of the session. Stephen sadly had to disappear due to family reasons. He's helping his brother move. How did you think this episode went?
I think it was really good. It opened up a load of discussions in all different areas in general life, so I think that's just a good thing as well, that some of these young people or people that listen to your podcast can take some of this information and use it positively. And like they were saying with a positive role model, look for a positive role model, look for positive role model traits within different people within your social circle, and use that to your benefit. Take that information, yeah.
Definitely. Even if we don't reach a vast range of people, even if this information helps one person, that's still a win.
That's definitely it. When I do my detached youth work, by the end of my life, my career and stuff like that, as long as I've helped one young person throughout all that, my job's been good. You know what I mean?
Right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll have to end it here. So thank you for everybody for listening, and we'll see you later.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. Usually we have a laugh and joke, but sometimes talking about a serious topic is a good thing. Remember that bottling up feelings is no way to cope. We encourage sharing your thoughts with a loved one or doctor. And again, thank you for listening. Next episode coming soon.